Hi there, welcome to Taking the Biz. If you're new to this channel, it's dedicated to providing revision tutorials for A-level business students. This is the fourth part of our videos on critical path analysis. We'll put links in the descriptions below to our first three tutorials on CPA. In this one, we're going to take a look at the pros and cons of critical path analysis as a managerial tool in case we get asked longer evaluative questions on this topic in the exams. So often students are so terrified that a question is going to come up on critical path that requires them to perhaps amend a critical path diagram or complete a critical path diagram, that they forget that they might also get asked a much longer question where they've got to evaluate whether this is a tool that aids or can mislead and hinder managers. So we're going to crack right into trying to make sure that we are ready for that question if it comes up. So let's take a look at the core advantages of critical path as a concept first of all. And the one we should probably put front and center and start with is that critical path analysis is a means of improving efficiency in an organization. The very purpose of CPA is to try and help managers identify how they can shorten the length of time that a project is going to take to complete. Critical path analysis is all about identifying simultaneous engineering opportunities, trying to find activities that form part of a project that might be able to be completed simultaneously, concurrently, so that we can try and squeeze down the overall time that a project takes. If we can get multiple activities or tasks going at the same time, it's going to mean that we can get a project done in a shorter period of time. Now let's analyze that, because in organizations, time can equal money. If we can reduce the time that an activity takes us, if we can cut down the length of a project, then that is going to mean that the business's resources are committed to that project for a shorter period of time. And it costs organizations money to commit their resources to a project. It's going to mean that if we can shorten the length of a project, it means we're not going to have to deploy human labor to it for as long a period. We might not have to deploy other resources to it for as long a period. So if we can make projects more efficient, we can cut down the time that they take to complete, we can lower the organization's costs. That's a great advantage of critical path analysis. Next advantage is to do with planning and the planning of resources. Because when organizations are completing projects, particularly big ones, perhaps very expensive grand projects, there's going to be a lot of resources involved. And another advantage of critical path analysis is it helps plan and organize when and where all of those different resources are going to be needed. So by structuring out a critical path diagram, we might see when certain physical resources need to be procured or brought into the organization. We might see when certain human resources need to be hired or subcontracted, or when we might need outside agencies to come in and assist with tasks. We can plan out using critical path analysis exactly what resources are needed and exactly what weeks or months we need those resources to, again, just help with the overall resource planning of the organization. If we stay on the subject of planning, if nothing else, we can say that critical path analysis does at least force managers to improve their communication with each other and to plan out an activity or a project that the business is working on. So often in organizations, there might be the temptation to just launch into a project without thoroughly getting all the different agents that are going to be involved in this project, getting them to communicate with each other, talk about what each element of the project is going to require, the kind of resources it's going to need, and that can lead to a bit of a haphazard implementation of projects. Critical path analysis prevents that. It's going to go into some detail about the planning that's going to be involved. Everybody involved in the project is going to have their say about the resources that they're going to require. It's going to lead to more collaboration. It's going to lead to more communication. It's going to lead to more internal synergies inside the organization. And that can obviously be of positive benefit to the organization. But there are some question marks attached to critical path analysis. Chiefly amongst those, we'd look at the durations that are estimated in critical path analysis. In critical path analysis, we lay out all of the tasks that are involved in getting a project delivered, and we assign durations to them so we know how long each of them are going to last. those durations are forecasts, they're estimated. And unless the business has experience of this kind of project before, these estimates might end up being wrong. Now, where this is a particular problem is if it actually turns out that maybe activities could have been completed in a shorter period of time, but because we'd allocated a time slot to them, and that's the target that the people involved in that activity had at the forefront of their minds, we might end up actually completing a project in a longer period of time than might have been possible. For example, imagine that we've got a project that involves the activity of collecting some market research, and we assign 4 weeks to the completion of that market research. Everybody involved in the collection of that research is going to take that 4 weeks as their target. That's going to be the time frame that they're going to be working to. Now, it may have been possible that they could have got it done in 3 weeks, but once you assign that duration of part of your critical path analysis, it almost becomes a target that people feel that they're entitled to, and might actually mean that projects end up taking longer than it may have been possible to complete them in. Another key question mark attached to critical path analysis is the idea of time, and whether critical path analysis encourages a focus on how quickly a project can be delivered, and maybe just sidelines the notion of quality of delivery of that project. So if we do a CPA diagram and we say that a project can be completed in 21 weeks, suddenly that 21 weeks becomes the all-encompassing goal. Everything is about meeting those deadlines, especially those activities that are on the critical path, coming in on time, making sure we hit our targets. And maybe the idea of just delivering quality, making sure that the project is completed to a high standard, making sure that we maintain strong relationships with suppliers, with customers, making sure that customer service throughout the project is appropriately thought through, making sure that every activity is completed to the highest quality standards, that might just go out the window as we prioritize hitting deadlines and making sure that we don't overrun. So it's one thing that we must want to think about, especially for organizations where brand name, customer service, quality, performance, where those are vital measures to them. We might just raise question marks about whether critical path analysis might just encourage a slightly different culture that moves away from the quality of provision. The other thing we might just say about critical path analysis is that it does create a very rigid structure to a project. By structuring out all of those activities and when they've got to take place and what has to happen for other activities to flow from or follow, it means that once we encounter problems, we might not have the potential to deviate from our plan quite as easily. For example, imagine we've got an activity as part of a project that we have forecasted we're going to need to hire in some specialist consultants to help us with. Maybe we're going to take delivery of some particular inventories or materials on that set week to do that activity, and something earlier down the line overruns. Might mean that, well, those consultants now we can't cancel, and perhaps they're arriving and we don't have tasks ready for them to work on. It might mean that we have to take delivery of that inventory, but we're not ready to use it yet, and we've got to find some way of storing it, which ups the organization's costs. And because of the rigidity of critical path analysis, we plan everything out, we script everything, we structure it. But if there's delays earlier in some of the activity chains there, it might mean that when it comes to activities, things that we've got booked or scheduled can't actually occur, but we might still have to bear the costs of them because it's too late to cancel them. And it might just mean that the project ends up sort of grinding to a halt temporarily while we catch up with activities that have overrun, and then we have to try and rebook consultants, and we have to kind of re-get hold of stock that maybe we've cancelled, and it can lead to difficulties in the organisation. Final thing we want to do then is try and reach a conclusion. Is this a useful tool for managers or not? Well, look, these are some pretty nice advantages. If these can come to fruition, critical path analysis can be a very useful tool. Essentially, the effectiveness, the usefulness of critical path hinges on our ability to just limit the impact of these downsides. If the business can try and contingency plan, try and make sure that it understands that the durations are estimates, but takes measures to try and make sure that they're as accurate as possible, whether that entails hiring in consultants if it's a project that the business hasn't really run through before to try and get some expert knowledge and experience, whether it means completing market research in quite some detail and incurring costs to make sure that they have a really strong knowledge of how different activities might take. That's something that we can do to try and mitigate the risks attached with critical path analysis. In terms of emphasising speed over quality, if managers are conscious of that, if it's something that they're aware of, it's something that they can guard against. As they're trying to hit those deadlines, they can try and make sure that teams aren't cutting corners in order to try and arrive to a certain deadline. They can try and make sure that quality remains at the forefront of the organisation's delivery. So is critical path analysis a useful tool? You're darn right it is. How useful is it? It depends on the organisation's ability to mitigate and plan for and develop contingencies for some of the limitations that are attached to it. We know critical path is a tough activity. It's worth persevering with. If it comes up on the exam and you can answer it, you're going to be richly rewarded. I promise you that. Keep on taking the biz. We'll see you soon for some more tutorials. Bye for now.